These are 6 undercover cop performances that transformed action cinema between 1990 and 2006. Lawrence Fishburne's morally conflicted detective in Deep Cover, Keanu Reeves chasing surfer bank robbers in Point Break, Jason Patric's drug-addicted narcotics officer in Rush. These actors didn't just play cops pretending to be criminals, they explored the psychological cost of living a double life. Box office hits defined careers, while commercial bombs became cult classics that influenced everything from The Departed to the Fast and the Furious franchise. John Hull, Deep Cover. Lawrence Fishburne's first lead role in a major film came in 1992 with Deep Cover, where he played Russell Stevens Jr., a Cincinnati police officer recruited by the DEA to infiltrate Los Angeles drug operations under the alias John Hull. What made this performance career-defining goes beyond Fishburne's intensity, because the script had originally been written for a white protagonist. Every major studio rejected the revised version with a black lead, and New Line Cinema only greenlit the project after New Jack City proved there was an audience. $8 million bought a film that earned over $16 million domestically, and Roger Ebert handed it 3.5 stars, while noting that Fishburne was strong and complex in a role that marks him for more leading work. The critic praised how the film distinguished itself by having Fishburne's character agonize over the moral decisions he has to make, which separated it from typical crime thrillers of the era. Fishburne prepared by riding in LAPD squad cars that responded to real calls, and director Bill Duke encouraged improvisation on set, creating what Duke called a constant friction of ideas. Marlon Brando was so impressed that he personally called Fishburne to praise the performance, which tells you everything about the caliber of work on display. The character's moral complexity springs from a devastating childhood trauma. At age 10, Stevens witnessed his drug-addicted father shot and killed while robbing a liquor store on Christmas Eve. This backstory informs every choice Stevens makes as he descends deeper into the criminal world, and the film's most powerful moment comes when Fishburne delivers the line about killing a man who looks like him and no police coming. That single line captures the entire moral collapse at the film's center. Deep Cover marked the last time Fishburne would be credited as Larry Fishburne, before transitioning to Lawrence Fishburne, and within 2 years, he'd win a Tony Award for 2 trains running and earn an Academy Award nomination for playing Ike Turner. But Deep Cover proved he could carry a film as a morally conflicted leading man, something Hollywood hadn't given him the chance to do before. The film's legacy extends beyond Fishburne's performance because the title track by Dr. Dre, featuring Snoop Doggy Dogg, marked both Dr. Dre's debut solo single after NWA's breakup and Snoop's first ever recorded appearance. Criterion Collection released a 4K restoration in 2021, recognizing Deep Cover as an unsung gem of the 90s black cinema explosion. Johnny Utah, Point Break. Keanu Reeves' transformation from Bill and Ted's slacker to action star began with Point Break in 1991, where he played Johnny Utah, a 25-year-old FBI rookie and former Ohio State quarterback. Reeves brought an earnest physicality to a role that easily could have tipped into parody because the plot, rookie agent goes undercover as a surfer to catch bank robbers, invited ridicule from the start. Roger Ebert's review acknowledged this directly, writing that, "The plot of Point Break, summarized, invites parody. The result is surprisingly effective." Director Catherine Bigelow pushed Reeves into 2 months of intensive surf training with Dennis Jarvis, a former world-class professional surfer who trained Reeves, Patrick Swayze, and Lori Petty at Hermosa Beach and Kauai. Jarvis later told Entertainment Weekly that Patrick said he'd been on a board a couple of times, Keanu definitely had not surfed before, and Lori had never been in the ocean in her life, which meant everyone was starting from scratch. $24 million produced a film that earned $83 million worldwide, and it received a 68% Rotten Tomatoes score with mixed critical reception. But here's the thing. The film's cultural impact far exceeded its modest box office, because the Fast and the Furious franchise essentially borrowed Point Break's entire structure and built a multi-billion-dollar empire from it. Undercover cop infiltrates extreme sports criminals, develops conflicted loyalty, questions his own identity. The formula worked so well, they just swapped surfing for street racing. Reeves reflected on the role's impact at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2017, describing how people regularly tell him they started jumping out of airplanes because of Point Break. "I started surfing because of Point Break. It really changed people's lives, just like it did mine." The character of Johnny Utah undergoes a complete transformation from by-the-book FBI agent to someone questioning everything about law enforcement, morality, and Reeves described Utah as a total control freak, and the ocean beats him up and challenges him. After a while, everything becomes a game, and Utah becomes as amoral as any criminal, which is exactly the identity crisis the film explores. The film's final image shows Utah throwing his FBI badge into the ocean, and that moment crystallizes the entire journey. James Cameron served as executive producer and claimed in December 2025 that he wrote Point Break, a statement that sparked debate since W. Peter Iliff received sole screenplay credit. Regardless of the writing controversy, Reeves' performance anchored the film's emotional core, while Patrick Swayze, who performed 55 actual skydives for the film and cracked 4 ribs during surfing scenes, elevated what could have been a simple action thriller into something resembling a philosophical examination of freedom versus responsibility. Sean Archer and Castor Troy. Face Off. Face Off in 1997 delivered 2 undercover cop performances for the price of one, both courtesy of Nicolas Cage and John Travolta switching faces. FBI agent Sean Archer surgically assumes the face of terrorist Castor Troy to locate a bomb. Troy wakes up in Archer's body, and both actors spend most of the film playing each other. The script had originally been written in 1990 for Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, envisioned as action heavyweights, literally trading catchphrases. Warner Brothers shelved it. The project languished for years, and Nicolas Cage, fresh off his Academy Award win for Leaving Las Vegas and action success in The Rock, was finally offered the role. Cage initially turned it down because he didn't want to play a villain, but changed his mind when told he'd mostly play Sean with Castor's face, which is a fascinating bit of actor psychology. John Travolta came aboard after receiving a personal recommendation from Quentin Tarantino, and the pairing made perfect sense because Travolta was in the middle of his historic comeback following Pulp Fiction and Get Shorty. The chance to work with John Woo again after Broken Arrow proved irresistible. The 2 actors spent 2 weeks together before filming, learning to mimic each other's gestures and vocal cadences, creating specific mannerisms for each character that the other could reproduce. Travolta suggested Cage watch his films Phenomenon, Michael, and Look Who's Talking, which gives you some insight into how seriously they took the character work. The result was a masterclass in physical acting, because watching Cage play Travolta, playing Cage playing Travolta, is genuinely disorienting in the best possible way. $80 million produced a film that earned $245 million worldwide, becoming a massive commercial and critical success with a 93% Rotten Tomatoes score. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, writing that, using big movie stars and asking them to play each other, Woo and his writers find a terrific counterpoint to the action scenes, and the reinterpretation that happens throughout is what makes the film work. Saturn Awards recognized the achievement with Best Director and Best Writing wins. MTV Movie Awards handed over Best Action Sequence and Best On-Screen Duo trophies, and the film received an Oscar nomination for Best Sound Effects Editing. One of the film's most iconic scenes, Nicolas Cage gunfighting to Over the Rainbow, wasn't in the original script, and when Paramount refused to finance the scene, John Woo paid for it himself. The studio reimbursed him later when the film became profitable, and the song was covered by Olivia Newton-John, Travolta's Grease co-star, creating an additional layer of meta-textual resonance that fans appreciated. Cage told E! News in January 2023 that working with Travolta felt like 2 kids in the back of the schoolroom getting to get in trouble, and both actors have expressed interest in returning for a sequel. Cage suggested in 2023 that Face Off 2 is a sequel that lends itself to a lot of twists and turns and unpredictability, and as of December 2024, reports confirm both actors will return, possibly in supporting roles rather than leads. Joey Gazelle, Running Scared. Spoiler alert, Running Scared requires some upfront honesty. Paul Walker's character Joey Gazelle is not actually an undercover cop for most of the film. The movie presents him as a low-level mob associate, and his status as an undercover FBI agent is revealed as a major plot twist at the climax. If you're looking for a traditional undercover cop performance, this isn't it, but the twist itself makes for one of cinema's most unexpected reveals. Paul Walker actively pursued this role because he wanted to break away from his Fast and Furious image, and he told Chud in February 2006 that people have always got me running around smiling while the film was like a way of exorcising the demons. He warned audiences in The Morning Call that onwa.com, a lot of people are going to hate it. There's lots of violence and the language is terrible, and he mentioned that his father couldn't stand the language in this one, which tells you how far Walker pushed himself outside his comfort zone. $15 to $17 million produced a film that earned only $9 million worldwide, failing to recoup its budget and leaving critics divided. Rotten Tomatoes shows a 41% score from critics but 79% from audiences, which suggests the film found its people even if mainstream critics didn't embrace it. Roger Ebert gave it 3 stars and wrote, "Running Scared goes so far over the top, it circumnavigates the top and doubles back on itself. It's the Mobius strip of over-the-topness. I am in awe." The film's most notable endorsement came from Quentin Tarantino, who was so impressed he left a message on Walker's answering machine praising both the film and Walker's performance after its disappointing opening weekend. Director Wayne Kramer cast Walker after being taken with how tough behind the eyes he was, and the commitment showed in every frame. Over 300 uses of the word fuck placed the film 9th in cinema history for total F-word usage, and Kramer conceived the whole thing as a Grimm's fairy tale nightmare, where, around each corner, was always some escalating evil lurking. November 30th, 2013, Paul Walker died at age 40 as a passenger in a Porsche Carrera GT, traveling between 80 and 93 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. He was returning from a charity event for his foundation Reach Out Worldwide, and his death occurred while filming Furious 7, which was completed posthumously using his brothers Cody and Caleb as stand-ins. Terry Noonan, State of Grace. Sean Penn's performance as Terry Noonan in State of Grace is possibly the most psychologically complex undercover cop on this list, because Noonan returns to Hell's Kitchen after a 10-year absence to infiltrate the Irish mob run by his childhood friend's family. The Flannerys raised him, protected him, and now he's wearing a wire to bring them down, while also navigating his status as the former lover of Kathleen Flannery, creating a romantic triangle that intensifies his moral conflict. State of Grace had the misfortune of being released just 5 days before Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas in September 1990, and Roger Ebert's review acknowledged this timing disaster by noting the film is being released at about the same time as Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, a film so strong and graceful that few others can stand comparison to it. Despite an 86% Rotten Tomatoes score and excellent reviews, the film earned less than $2 million against an $18 million budget, which means almost nobody saw it theatrically. Director Phil Joannou, who was only 28 at the time, encountered an interesting challenge with his two leads, because their acting processes were completely different. He told Filmmaker magazine that Gary comes out of the box hot and ready to explode, and those first 3 takes are just gold. Sean, more of a slow burn. And by the time Penn hit his stride around take 6 or 7, Oldman was already finished with his best work. This created tension during wide shots, featuring both actors together, and Joannou had to navigate between 2 opposing creative approaches. Penn met Robin Wright on this set, they became a couple during filming, and their daughter Dylan Frances Penn was born April 13, 1991. Marriage came in 1996, divorce in 2010, but the relationship started here on the Hell's Kitchen streets. What makes Penn's performance particularly devastating is the moral ambiguity at the film's core, because one critic nailed it by asking, is Penn doing the noble thing by taking down the criminals, or is he a rat bastard, disowning himself from the way of life and people who helped him along the way? That question makes Noonan sick to the pit of his stomach, and Penn shows it in his face with almost every scene. Over 60 sites across Manhattan, the Bronx, and New Jersey served as filming locations, with cinematographer Jordan Cronenweth, who had shot Blade Runner, bringing a noir atmosphere to Hell's Kitchen that reinforced Noonan's isolation. Director Joannou reflected in 2015 that people constantly tell him State of Grace must have been great for his career, and I say, no, it was a flop. No one saw it. It was a disaster, which captures the film's initial reception perfectly. The film languished in obscurity for years until DVD release in the early 2000s helped build its cult following, and modern critics frequently cite it as a precursor to The Departed. One Letterboxd reviewer put it perfectly, State of Grace jogged so The Departed could sprint. Jim Raynor, Rush. Jason Patric's performance as Jim Raynor in Rush might be the darkest, most harrowing undercover cop portrayal in cinema history, because Raynor is a seasoned narcotics officer who actually shoots drugs. Real drugs, in dealers' presence, to maintain his cover. He rationalizes this by telling his rookie partner that addiction is easy to kick with just a few days of sweaty sheets, which is perhaps the most dangerous lie an addict can tell himself. Lily Feeney Zanuck directed Rush as her directorial debut and only feature film, working from Kim Wozencraft's autobiographical novel about a real 1978-79 Tyler, Texas drug scandal. The story follows 2 undercover officers who become genuinely addicted to the drugs they're buying and illegally using, and the real Wozencraft and her partner both served federal prison time after the FBI investigation concluded. $17 million produced a film that earned only $7 million domestically, but the commercial failure didn't reflect the quality of the work. 72% on Rotten Tomatoes and 66% on Metacritic told the real story, and Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars while writing, Rush is the story of 2 undercover narcotics agents who get badly hooked on the drugs they are buying and illegally using. The movie depends on 2 strong performances for its effects, and gets them from Jason Patric and Jennifer Jason Leigh. Patric actually did shoot up for the film to maintain authenticity, though the substances in his syringes were either saline or vitamins rather than actual narcotics. This physical commitment extended throughout a performance that required Patric to portray a man in complete psychological freefall, and you can see the transformation happen in real time. Ebert noted that Rush toys with the possibility that the Patric character may indeed be a drug addict, fooling himself that he is a cop and in control, which is exactly the film's most terrifying subtext. By the film's end, Raynor is huddled in a corner, waving a shotgun and gibbering at hallucinations, and there are no sweaty sheets in sight, because the lie he told his partner about easy recovery was just another addict's delusion. Greg Allman made his acting debut in the film with a mostly wordless but surprisingly strong performance as a slyly menacing dealer, while Sam Elliott played Raynor's superior and Max Perlich delivered what Ebert called a genuinely affecting performance as an informant. The supporting cast elevated material that could have become exploitative into something genuinely tragic. Rush gained unexpected cultural significance through Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven, written for the film after the death of Clapton's 4-year-old son Connor, who fell from a 53rd floor window on March 20, 1991. Clapton told Guitar World in June 1993 that the timing was perfect because they needed a song about loss, and I had plenty of them. Tears was actually in a very embryonic stage when I was approached, and I completed it for Rush. I needed the film to finish it, and the song won 3 Grammys in 1993. Turner Classic Movies noted that Patrick was hailed for his intense characterizations in hard-edged independent films. After Dark, My Sweet and Rush, and one modern critic called it one of the best cop films I've ever seen, sitting right next to The French Connection and Narc, which places it in elite company. If this breakdown hit the spot, the video on your screen takes it even further. Go watch it right now.